What's up, sir? Welcome to Hard Knock TV. How you doing?
I'm doing well, family. How you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you for taking the time. Always appreciate our conversations. So,
Always love, bro. Where you at, LA?
yeah, I'm in LA.
Yeah, shut down, locked down.
Yes, sir. I like to start interviews by taking it back. So let's imagine a movie about your life in your early childhood. Let that first scene of the movie that kind of like comes into San Diego, into your childhood home. Like, what are we seeing? What are we hearing? What are we smelling?
You seeing, my uncle working on his lowrider out front. You know what I mean? You hearing, like something blasting, some rap music blasting from his car. You smelling my grandmother making burritos. You know what I mean? Most black grandmas don't make burritos, but when you live in Dago, then they do.
You remember like what those sounds were that were coming out of your uncle's car?
Oh yeah. Oh man. Oh shoot. So much West Coast rap music. AMG, DJ Quick, Penthouse Players, Click, like Sugar Free, all of that. You know what I'm saying?
Do you remember what your first musical memories were?
Yeah, I remember my mom worked at a halfway house, and I went to the halfway house to wait on her to get off work, and one of the dudes staying there slid me a tape, and he was like, "Man, listen to this. It's rap music." I don't even know how old I was. I was probably like in the second grade, something like that, and it was like a world opened up. It was like LL Cool J, Rakim, Eazy-E. It was like, what is this? My head exploded.
Do you remember that moment where you decided you wanted to rap?
I was probably like 11, and I think I was just writing songs with some friends in the front yard, like making up songs with some friends in the front yard. And everybody kept saying, "Man, yours are good." You know what I mean? They was like, "Man, yours are good." And so I was always like, well, shoot, maybe I could do this. Maybe this is a thing I need to pursue.
You remember what those first songs were about?
Yeah, man. I remember one song was just about a girl in the neighborhood, and I it was like something like, "I want to meet you, can't wait to see you," something crazy like that. It was just like freestyling. But the one I really remember was this song we wrote, me and my little homeboy in the neighborhood, called Straight G'ing. And it was like, talking about, I don't know, like stealing candy from the store and just stupid little stuff. Like we thought we was some little G's, you know what I mean? The first thing I'm gonna do, watch your back. If you see me in your neighborhood, you better watch your back. Just like little stupid stuff. But we, in our mind, we was killing it.
When was that moment where you dedicated yourself full time to music as a career?
That's a good question. I think, it was always a dream, and I think I had moments where I chase it, but I've always been like, I've just always been a hustler. So I had to make sure I had something to financially keep me, straight. So I never gave it full, it was like, all right, I'm laid off from a job or something like that. Let me go and pursue the rap stuff and get it popping. But it wasn't until, honestly, I remember working for a cable company, and I had made my first album, and like I was getting booked for shows, like, small little things here and there, but it was enough to pay my bills. It was small, but I was like, shoot, I could eat off of this. I can pay rent and groceries and gas. I might quit this job. I never forget, my mom was like, "Don't do it," but I did it, and I never looked back since.
What was that first conversation with your mom when you told her you wanted to quit your job and do rapping full time?
She thought I had lost my mind. She was just like, this is like, you gotta be smart. You gotta figure this out. And I was like, yo, just trust me. Like, I promise you my bills is getting paid. I'm not built for this, civilian life here. You know what I mean? And so it was a journey, but she ended up rocking with me.
What were those jobs you were doing before you were rapping? Like, what were some of the hustles that you had?
Oh man, I had so many things going on. Because even with the cable company, they would have giveaways, and they would be like, y'all here go a bunch of DVD players, and we're gonna give them away. I was like, I ain't giving none away, I'm selling these. So I would sell the DVD players, I'm hustling DVD players. Before that, I would go on, it was like, before like social media really popped off, there were certain companies that would, I would go on campuses and take pictures of people, and I'd be like, yo, you can check it out. And every time they would view it, I get a check. So I was hustling like that. What else was I doing before? I did everything. I worked at the YMCA. I had some other stuff I'm not too proud of before that, but I had, job. I kept a job, grocery store. I stayed at the grocery store all the time. So yeah, I kept a couple jobs.
What was that first check you got for music? Do you remember?
First check I got from music. I'm trying to remember the first check I got. I don't know if I remember the first check, but I remember the first time I got $1,000, and my mind was blown because I was just like, yo, I just made $1,000. Like, I don't think I'd ever seen a check with 4 numbers on it before that. So that blew my mind. I think I got flown out to, I don't know where I was. It's Indianapolis. I got flown out to Indianapolis and did a show out there, and they gave me $1,000, and I was like, yo, this is crazy. So that bugged me out.
What was that moment that you made your mom proud with your career?
Shoot, it had to have been when I moved to Atlanta. You know what I'm saying? Because before that, it wasn't really any accomplishments or like anything tangible. You know what I mean? It was like, cool, you put out albums. But when we moved to Atlanta and I was touring, she didn't understand. She was like, you traveling, you touring, is this really stable? And then when I showed her, me and my wife had got a new house. She was like, oh my God, like, y'all bought this for music. And I was like, yeah. She was just like, I didn't, it just became a little more real to her, when that happened.
I'm sure that was a dope feeling.
Yeah, it was great, man.
Let's talk about your creative process a little bit. Like, what's that like? Like, how do you approach making a song? Do you have a concept first, or do you listen to a beat and let that inspire you? Like, what's a Lecrae creative process, or does it vary?
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a mix. I mean, the music has to speak to me first. So I'm not even touching it if the music doesn't speak to me. Sometimes I have a concept. Sometimes I have an idea that I feel like needs to be talked about. But I've lived so much life and seen so many things now to where it's like I got concepts I haven't even touched yet. They just stockpiled. So now it's mostly like the music got to talk to me. So I like working with producers who, can bring that out, bring out that, like, yeah, you caught it. You know what I mean? Like, we caught a vibe, and that's speaking to me. And thus far, I feel like I have a real good chemistry with S1. You know what I mean? S1 and I we speak the same language musically.
Was that an instant chemistry, or did that grow over time? Because you worked with him for a while.
Yeah, I think it was an instant chemistry, man. Honestly, like, I just remember him playing stuff and me being like, yo, like, this, wait, stop right now. Stop. Let me write to this. And just like, I could write a whole song immediately listening, because the textures and the drums, all of it just tells a story that I'm able to just dive into and tap into. So he's always been somebody that I can just, it's a match made in heaven.
Speaking of diving into, I want to dive into your 9th studio album, which just came out. Congrats on that. I mean, the longevity, the album's dope. Walk me through the concept of the album and how it came to be. Like, what were those like initial either studio sessions or just brainstorming sessions that kind of like put you in the mindset of restoration and what that meant to you at this point in your life?
For me on this album, I was coming out of such a dark time in my life, and I knew I was just grateful to come to some of these realizations and to come to like a healthy conclusion on mental health and healing and emotional and spiritual health as well. So for me, it was like, yo, I want to write music from this place. And it took some time because I was in the process. So every time I would reach a new plateau, it was like almost like going to a therapy session and you come out with a new like vantage point. It's like, you come out healed in a new way. That was like another song. So it wasn't like one setting. It was like over a period of time. And then during that period of time, you got to get music that speaks to those places. And, I needed to collect music that was speaking to me in an authentic way to where I could write some of these songs. So it was taking a minute, and I just went to the go-tos. Of course, I went to S1. Of course, I went to Frank E and got in the lab with them. I always, I do well in like warm climates, sun shining, warm climate, brightness. I do well there. So I knew like LA and Texas, those were going to be good environments for me to be in. So that's where I started, man. And it was like 2 years almost getting it done.
How does the idea of restoration fit into a culture right now that seems to be dominated by cancel culture? Like, how do you juxtapose the two of restoration and this culture that we have right now on social media, which is we're going to find a snippet that you say or something that you say, and all of a sudden, boom, it's done. Like, you've been canceled. Like,
I think cancel culture is stupid. So for the record, I think it's stupid. I don't care. I'm down with accountability culture. You know what I'm saying? We should hold people accountable for their actions. But, cancel culture is the idea that this person is now worthless, that there's nothing that can ever be redemptive or restorative about who they are or what they are. And I think that's ridiculous. That just doesn't even make sense. Like were that to be you would hate it. And then what really trips me out is how, we'll want somebody to, in our life or in our world to be rehabilitated, or like somebody who's been in prison for a long time. We want jail reform, but then we'll cancel people outside the prison cells. You know what I'm saying? It's like you want reform for a dude who shot and killed, my cousin, but then you want to cancel somebody who tweeted something you didn't like. I'm like, that's crazy to me. You know what I mean? So it doesn't make sense. But restoration fits into that because restoration is just being honest about those very things and saying, look, I'm just as terrible as anybody else. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to cancel somebody, cancel me. I should have been canceled a long time ago. Shoot, God should have canceled me, but he didn't. He restored me. So restoration is possible in all aspects of life. And I want everybody who experiences the album to believe that.
You mentioned prisons. For this album, you went to tour on the prison. And for the last one, your first two stops were Rikers Islands and LA County. Why is it important to take your message inside the system?
Because, man, honestly, man, people in prison get forgotten. You know what I mean? Like, they get looked over, they get forgotten. Everybody likes to use, the street credibility of somebody being locked up or whatever. But end of the day, they're not making phone calls on a regular basis. They're not sending meals. They're not caring about their soul, their mental health, their emotional health. Like, they get forgotten. And I think that if you're really going to be a catalyst for restoration, you're really going to be a person who's about the community. Like, that's the community. And on top of that, most of the wisdom that was guiding a lot of us when we were kids in these communities, those individuals are locked up right now. You know what I mean? So part of it is just demonstrating like that pay it forward. Hip hop too, like that's another thing. I'm kind of derailing, but I think hip hop culture, like we have this thing where it's only about the new, the next, and paying homage and respect to your elders and those who paved the way is not something that we really grab onto and appreciate. And so a lot of people have been imprisoned who are trying to make a better way and create a new system for us to thrive in, and they got locked up and we just forget about it. You know what I mean? So I just want to let them know, like, I care, and the music is for them.
What has been some of that wisdom that you've taken away from some of the interactions when you have these conversations with inmates?
Man, one of the biggest keys I took away, shout out to my man, Rasan Thomas, who's locked up at San Quentin right now, doing 25 to life, because he told me, he was like, Craig, I can't change my situation, but I can be changed in my situation. And that rocked me because he was incarcerated and he spent too many years frustrated, angry, depressed. And then all of a sudden something in his mind clicked where he realized my life isn't over. You know what I'm saying? I still got opportunity in front of me and I'm gonna make the most of it. And he began, financial literacy classes and journalism classes. He hosts a podcast called Ear Hustle, and he's written for Vice and GQ. And so it's like that, and he knows he made mistakes when he was younger too. So it's like another piece of advice I got was, man, live for what you want the most, not for what you want in the moment, or live for the movement, not the moment. Those type of mindsets, because they have lived out the consequences of living for the moment. And so, man, this is beautiful wisdom.
In the album and also in the documentary that was released with the album, the 3-part doc that you put out, you talk about anxiety and you talk about waking up. I think it was, I have it written here somewhere, November 1st, 2018. Was just kind of like with clinical depression. Take me to that day, if you don't mind, and just kind of like, how was that day different and what were the culminating factors that led to you feeling that way?
Yeah, I think for 2 years prior to that, I was on a downward spiral, but I just really wasn't understanding it. I knew I felt a way. I knew I was struggling spiritually, emotionally, mentally. I knew I was frustrated by some of the stuff I was seeing as far as like, all of the murders that at the hands of police officers to unarmed Black men. I knew that was bothering me. I knew the church's response was bothering me. I knew the racial division was bothering me. Social media was bothering me. And I was kind of like, my coping mechanism was performing and just adding more stress on my plate. My coping mechanism was just being more stressed out. And what I would do is I would drink it's like you work to forget about all the anger and frustration. And then to calm down, you drink, but then you need more, then you need more, then you need more. And it was just a messed up balance where I started spiraling. And there was a couple moments, like between 2016 and 2018 where I was like, man, like, I'm depressed, but it wasn't like, it was bad, but it wasn't like clinical dark. It was dark where I'm like, man, I'm really down. Or even like one day I was just like, yo, I'm crying because I'm like, dang, I'm sitting here crying. What am I crying about? You know what I mean? But then 2018, I remember the night before just, on a binge, drinking, having fun. And then I woke up the next day and it's kind of like, you kind of pondering on it all. Like, man, what am I doing? Like, what am I living for? What's the point? And I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about it. And all of a sudden, like, by the end of the day, it was like, it was like dark. Like the sky was blue, but I couldn't appreciate it. The sun was out. I couldn't enjoy food, basketball games, video, like nothing. I was just like, it was like living inside of your head. Like you want to be excited, but you can't. And it was crazy.
What are the steps that you take when you realize that you're kind of seeing the world through that great perspective to kind of like recalibrate your lens?
The first step I had to take was like acknowledging like, oh, I have a problem. You know what I mean? Like just acknowledging like I'm not well, because you think you are because you're functioning. You know what I mean? You winning awards, you're successful, you got a nice house, nice car. You know what I mean? All of these things. It's like I had every piece of evidence to be like, I'm fine. You know what I mean? Plus I was raised to be like, man, what you talking about? I'm finna sit here and be, but what really triggered me was the Khalif Browder story. And even when I was talking to Casanova, the rapper, and he was talking about being locked in solitary confinement and how it breaks your mind. And so I knew that my mind had a breaking point because of those situations. And I thought, okay, I snapped. Like, I had to acknowledge it. I think acceptance and acknowledgement is scary and painful, but denial is deadly. So I knew denying it was not going to be helpful. So first I just had to accept it. And then after that, I started home remedies, you know what I mean? Just like Googling stuff and Whole Foods stuff and just taking stuff, you know what I mean? But it was too far gone to where it was like, all right, I need professional help. And so that took me on a journey of finding therapy, meditation, mindfulness, changing my diet, my sleep patterns. You know, I quit drinking altogether. Just whatever it took to like take the steps toward wholeness and health.
The first track on the album is called Restore Me. Take me into that moment when you were writing the lyrics out for that song and how that's connected to what you're telling me right now.
Yeah, you know, the best way I could describe it is like, you know, life is like, you know, a paper towel. You know what I'm saying? And you could put a lot of stuff on a paper towel and it's gonna carry it, especially like a good Bounty paper towel, you know what I'm saying? And the average person who grew up in a healthy family deals with life like that, like a paper towel. But I experienced so much childhood trauma and, you know, abuse, neglect, like so much childhood trauma that my paper towels had water on it. You know what I'm saying? So now I got a wet paper towel. So the average person could probably deal with a lot more stressors, a lot more stuff on top of it. But mine, when it got too heavy, it snapped. And it was like, I'm done. You know what I mean? I'm just too far gone. So when I'm writing that song, I'm just thinking of it like that. Like I lost everything I had inside a couple years. It only took a couple years. Bow, and it just snapped on you. You know what I mean? Like people like, yo, well, it's just this. It's just what caused all that? And I'm like, nah, it was the buildup. And you know, I stopped really believing in God. You know what I mean? Like he didn't stop believing in me, but I stopped believing in God. So I just was all scrambled up. You know what I mean? And I just felt like I was lost, period. So it's like a metaphor for me saying I'm lost. And my man Ace had given me some ideas musically, but I was like, nah, we got to build it. It has to sound emotional. So we just went and built it. And shout out to Taylor Hill for coming in and just producing the hell out of it.
When you listen back to that song, what are the emotions that go through? Is it therapeutic or is it like a diary entry? It feels like a very like a journal of sorts. So now that you're in a different place, when you look back, like what are the emotions that you get when you listen to it?
It's absolutely therapeutic. You know what I'm saying? Like I won Grammys. I had #1 albums. I bought, you know, dream house or dream car, all that type of stuff, right? And I've never felt that feeling that like a professional athlete feels when he wins a championship. You know, I've never felt that like, I just want to, you know, that's how I feel when I listen to that song. Because I'm like, yo, we did it. You know what I'm saying? We went through hell. We came out on the other side. Like for all intents and purposes, like I don't listen to worship music or gospel music. That is my gospel music. You know what I'm saying? Like that is me saying, woo, we made it. Yeah.
What's it like to be going through what you were going through on the inside? And like you said, people are seeing you win accolades, perform, get all these things. Obviously, people think that because they see something on social media, they know what the person's going through. What's it like to go through something on the inside where everybody else on the outside thinks that you're just winning? You know, they think that you should be happy. They think that you should be a certain way because they're seeing the public persona of Lecrae, but they're not seeing the other side that comes with the behind the scenes. What's that process like?
The thing about it is it's like, it initially is maddening when I didn't understand it at first. It was maddening because, you know, there's no sympathy for winners. You know what I mean? So what ends up happening is you're transparent about something you feeling, and then you get mocked for it, which creates anger, which creates shame. And now you're in a dark place. And then you try to be transparent about that, which makes people ridicule you, which creates anger, which creates more shame. And it's like a cycle. So I think that's what keeps people from speaking out about it, because they know they'll be shamed, or they're ashamed to look weak or whatever, transparent. And I just got to a place where I was like, I don't even care anymore. You know what I mean? Like I'm good. And your opinions and perspectives are not going to dictate my reality. So this is my reality. And if anybody can be benefited by me telling this transparent story about it, then that's what I did it for. If you sitting at your house saying, man, if I had what he had, I would never be. Okay, well, I had what I had and I was. So that's my reality.
Yeah, I think people sometimes objectify celebrities in a way where it's like we forget that everybody has the same emotions, whether you have this or you have that. On Over the Top, the song, you compare fame to a drug.
It is a drug. Like, it is so addictive. If you don't believe fame is a drug, just look at social media. It's like you want more likes. When you don't get them, you're trying to figure out a way to get them again. Like, it's just the idea. It's like a false sense of success. It's affirmation. We want to be affirmed and look like we matter. And so the more fame you have, the more it gives you this false sense of worth and value. So you keep chasing it. You know what I mean? You keep chasing it because it's like in a way it's making you feel like I'm somebody. When you realize, bro, I'm somebody whether or not I'm famous or not. I'm somebody whether or not y'all are liking my pictures or my posts or not. When you really get there, you don't care anymore. You know what I'm saying? You're over it. That's like I'm over it. Like, number one, I have all the things that y'all say you need to be somebody. And I know they ain't nothing. You know what I mean? Like, it's like they don't make me. I was something before I had them. So if you want to talk about me, because like I'm really on my you know, I'll kick around some Vans, a t-shirt, you know what I mean, some jeans or whatever, because I have no desire to prove to you that I don't need symbols of wealth or symbols of success anymore. You know what I mean? It's like I'm over it. You know, it doesn't add to who I am in my person.
Logic is one of my close friends. We talked about this too, and I feel like this topic has come up and it's kind of resonated, and it's a motif in a lot of interviews that I've done recently, where it seems that the price of fame is freedom, your freedom, and anxiety that comes with, and that comes with the emotion. And I'm trying to see how artists can get to a spot where they could still be themselves without giving up their freedom and without having to live a life full of anxiety. Do you think that's just an innate price of a public life and of fame and the things that come with it? Or do you think that artists can go through that and then come out on the other side, like this project, where it's like, okay, I saw all the things that are kind of come with the territory of fame. I can get to a space where I could still be in the public, but not give up my peace of mind and not give up my freedom.
Yeah. I think you have to be very sober about it. The thing about it is when it's new for people, they don't realize the detriment of it. So they keep pursuing it. When you've seen that it doesn't give you it's the law of diminishing returns, it's probably too late by then. You know what I mean? So it would take somebody saying, cool, I realize this water's hot, so I'm not going to dive into that. But I think most people are so excited to be able to, like, it's a pool. Oh, what do you mean? I'm diving all the way into that. I'm like, bro, I'm trying to tell you it's not. And I'll tell my artists this all the time. Like, the new artists that I sign, you know, we go out to LA parties or whatever. We went to Diddy's house and I was like, listen, fam, this is just a man and just his house. When you leave here, you're going back to your house, into your reality. No magic is about to fall from the sky because you walked inside his house. Like, you got to get back to your life, your work, your grind. Be inspired if you want to be, but you're not all of a sudden, your worth and value as a person didn't just raise up because you were invited into these doors. But that's, you tell them, but you know, if they get it, I don't know.
A track you have on this album, I think it's called, is it Saturday Night?
Yeah.
Where you talk about events, it seems like that, like those industry events, those Grammy parties, the backstage, all that, and how that all plays into, I think what ended up, you know, leading to the November 1st thing, which is this idea that we're in an industry full of facades and expectations, and you can't find your worth through that. Can you maybe talk about, like you talked about a particular event with Diddy, but maybe talk about a particular event that inspired a song like that?
Oh yeah, man, there's so many of them. One I can think of is just like, I don't even know what event this was, but I remember it was at a club in Atlanta. and we're in the VIP section. It might have been a radio event or something like that. And I'm in the VIP section, and they're like, yo, would you mind if we brought some more girls to your section so it looks like it's more popping? And in my brain, I'm like, I'm here with my 4 friends and we're having a good time. But in order to look like whatever it is you want this to look like, you need to bring 4 more people in here. And I'm like, what are we doing? I don't even know these people, but order some drinks. Let's numb the pain together. We're like, you're not even having fun. You're filming yourself in the VIP section. And it's just like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? It's just all one big Truman Show. And it's just that type of stuff where I'm just like, what this doesn't even make any sense.
It really is a Truman Show. I remember that situation reminds me of a New Year's that I passed at one of the big clubs here in LA. I think it was Hyde. And, I'm with a lot of friends in different industries, and everybody's got a table. And midnight hits. It's a new year. And I'm looking around, and everybody's doing the selfie, like next to the celebrity or the pretty girl or whatever, to make it seem like they're, having this make-believe life. And then I look around, and I'm like, man, nobody here really cares about me. Like, who actually, like, if something happened to me right now, who would really care about my well-being? I was like, this isn't how I want to start the year. Like, I'm surrounded by people who are trying to portray to other people that they're living this life. And that was the last time that on New Year's I went out to like one of the big events, because I was like, this isn't it. This isn't how I want to start. Like, why am I here? I'm here for people to think that I'm at a hot club, to think that I made it some point in my career. And I was like, this doesn't bring me happiness. If anything, I think being in a crowded room makes me feel the most alone, because I'm like, man, I don't relate to what's going on right now. Like, everybody's, popping bottles and trying to make a big spectacle of everything. But I'm like, man, like, who really cares about what's going on in your life, or who's here just to show this image of where we're at? So that song really resonated with me, just being in the industry and just being like, what are we doing this for? Like, whose life are we trying to live?
It's funny you said you was talking about Logic, and I remember seeing him in LA, and I never got to tell him this either, but I was like, yo, let's link up. And I'm sure when an artist tells another artist that, the idea is like, how can I capitalize on this relationship artistically? It's transactional. But in my brain, I was like, yo, I think you would be a cool person to hang out with. You know what I'm saying? So I was really on some, like, I don't really want anything. I heard you like to play pool. You seem like a cool dude. Like, I would hang with Logic. And we never did link, but I just remember thinking to myself, I don't know if any of us industry people have industry friends, like for real friends in the industry. Like, I don't know if, like, for whatever reason, it's like the people who really care about you are not the people who could somehow capitalize off of that relationship in some kind of way. Like, so can I really trust, if I'm Drake, can I really trust that Kendrick or Meek Mill is my real friend if at any given moment that I can help their career? Or are we just friends because we're supposed to be and we're all like celebrities and so on and so forth? And I was like, man, I just want real friends who care about real things, real integration. Like, yo, my house is on fire, help. Yo, I'm struggling with my girl, help. Yo, my career is in jeopardy and I'm not where I once was. Am I still your friend? You know what I mean? That's where you get to.
It's funny because I've actually had this conversation with Logic a lot, just because a lot of times you have those pass-through encounters with other artists, like whether it's at a music festival or at an event. And a lot of times with him, he's like, I don't know if they really mean it, or if it's just something you say, like, yeah, let's build. Yeah, let's get in the studio. Yeah, let's link. And a lot of times I think for an artist, just like any human being, you're like, wait, is that just something you say because that's a thing to say at an event? Or are people really trying to like break bread and sit down with you? So I know for him, he's like, yo, like, it makes me anxious to think about, like, do people really want to hang out? Because I know from his perspective, he's reached out to people who said that, and then maybe they haven't responded to a text or haven't whatever. And then it's like, all right, well, I went out of my way to try to build this relationship. And then if the other person, and you don't know what the other person, they might be touring, they might be, who knows,
right.
You can't take it personal, but I know as a human being, you put yourself on a couple times out where you try to extend your hand out to somebody to build a friendship. And if they don't respond, then that kind of like taints you for the whole industry. It's like, all right, cool, whatever. It's just something else you say when you're at a festival. Another thing you say when you're at the Grammys. Yeah, let's build, let's get in the studio. Yeah, fuck with you, like whatever. But it's like, it's hard to discern like what's real when somebody's like genuine about it and what somebody's just saying because there's other people around and that's the thing you're supposed to say.
Yep, totally agree. You nailed it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Were you going to say something?
Nah, I said you nailed it. That's it. Money.
You talk a little bit about losing your identity in the documentary and in the album, and I'm assuming probably in the book that's coming out. How do you identify that? Like, how do you, because I feel like a lot of us, it's just like the little steps. So we don't always get to see until like you take a step back and you realize, whoa, like what makes me happy? Like what am I really about? Like I'm sure as an artist, you know, you have the Lecrae hat you put on and you do Lecrae things. And then you step back and you're like, wait, but what makes me happy? Am I doing this because it's the thing I'm supposed to be doing for my career? And then at what point do you actually like take a step back and say, what do I really want? Like, what is this kind of like train that's taking me this way, but is this really making me happy? Do I need to course correct to find my inner happiness?
You know what? I think sometimes it takes somebody having to stop you and make you think about that. Like you don't think about what you're thinking about until you have enough time to actually think about it. It's like margin. Like, do I have enough margin in my life to think about what I like or to think about what I don't like? Like, I didn't have enough margin in my life, enough space, enough time to even ask those kind of questions. And I remember somebody saying, Johnny Depp got stuck in a character. Like he didn't even know who he was because he had been playing so many other people for so long that he couldn't figure out who he was. And then even seeing Jim Carrey, and I forgot the character he was acting out on his special, but it was a reenactment of another comedian. And
right.
You said what?
Kaufman.
Yeah, Andy Kaufman. Yeah, and just when I sat and watched that, I thought about like, yo, who am I? You know what I mean? Like, what am I really? And you know, thank God I got close friends who say little things. They're like clues to like breadcrumbs for you to remember. Like, oh yeah, like that is what I'm interested in, and you know, you just began to stop being on, and I had to turn off. I had to say, oh, I'm not gonna be on anymore. Like now, post this album, I feel like every interview, like in the past, I've done interviews where I was decently authentic. Now I don't care. Like now it's like, I'm not really worried about, you know, oh, let me say the right thing or let me do this, or let me, you know what I mean? It's like, I care to the extent that I don't want to be reckless but I'm more like, I'm just going to be myself because I don't really have anything to prove, because I like me. And if I like myself, I'm going to be myself, you know what I mean? Instead of trying to be something that I think everybody else wants me to be.
What makes you happy?
Man, you know what makes me happy is spending good quality time with friends, you know, people who genuinely like me, listening to music that I like instead of worrying about, is this current? Is this good? Is this what I should be listening to? Is it, you know what I'm saying? Like, I like it, so I'm gonna listen to it. Also, adventure, you know what I mean? Just like going on adventures, traveling and doing stuff that I haven't done before. Those are the things that bring me happiness. Those are things that, you know, I enjoy doing. I get on a skateboard and I just ride and I enjoy that. You know what I mean? It's like, that's great.
Sometimes it's just the simple things.
Yeah.
Part of the 3-part doc that you put out really resonated with me. I actually grew up without my biological father. I've seen him twice when I was 10, and that's about the interaction I had. So something that hit close to home for me was when you and your sister, you know, found your biological father and went to eat with him. What was that experience like? And as somebody who's probably been on the other side of that and wondered what that experience was like, did it live up to whatever expectations you had in your mind?
That was the whole thing about it, is that I had to manage my expectations going in. I don't think I could have had that meeting if I had expectations other than my sister and I agreed. We just want to see him before he dies. We want to see him and just ask a question or two. We just want to observe. It's almost like going to the Grand Canyon. I just want to look at it. You know what I'm saying? Like, just experience it. I don't know if I'm gonna love it or hate it, but I know I need to see it before I die, before, it shuts down. So I think we managed our expectations, and we're just like, all right, we're not going to expect this, reunion and hugs and answers to all our deepest questions. And we're not going to expect him to shun us and run away. We're just going to say, let's just go see what happens. And I think when we got to that place internally together, then seeing him was actually healing, because it closed that expectation gap. You know what I mean? It was like an open hand. It was like, my hand is open. I don't know what I'm gonna get from this man. If it's good, great. If it's not good, I mean, it just is what it is. But it was just an open hand kind of thing.
Yeah, I've definitely have come across people who are like, oh, you need to figure out a way to, reconnect, like, oh, the trauma that whatever you went through in your childhood needs some kind of closure. And I think you even said this in the documentary, I'm like, I've passed that point where I needed that. Like, I was my own dad, like my mom was my mom and my dad, like I'm past that point. So if you talk to a therapist or you talk to people close to you and they're like, oh, well, I think you should reconnect. You should make that connection because it's an expectation. Like, it's what we see in the movies. You see the biological father reconnect, and then everything's supposed to be okay, and all the wounds and whatever, it's like somehow healed. And I was curious because your documentary was very honest and pure about it. You're sitting there across from him, like being like, what are you processing through all this? Like, what does this even mean to you? Because it feels surreal to me. And I feel like it was a very honest moment, and one that we don't necessarily see that much in society, where it's like people aren't putting extra on it. It's not sugarcoating. It's not like this long lost relationship that is going to somehow heal everything. It's just like a very real experience. Like, okay, I'm going through this. I don't even know what I'm supposed to be feeling right now, because you're talking to someone you don't really know. Like, for me, I'm like, I don't even know how I would react. Like, it's more like a stranger than it is like somebody that I feel emotionally connected to.
Yep. You're emotionally connected to an idea, if anything, because you don't know this person. So that's why I had to manage my expectations, because it was like, if I start imagining all the movie scripts that I've seen, it's going to be a massive letdown. You know what I mean? And if I close myself up, and I'm like, I don't want to see this dude, I don't care nothing about this dude, then I'm not making myself open for some kind of healing that could happen. You know what I mean? So I just was open-handed with it and saying, all right, whatever happens, I'm down with it.
Do you guys still stay in contact, or was that just an experience that you felt like you had to have?
We text, you know what I mean? We text, but again, like you said, like, I don't need a dad at this stage in my life. And I'm getting to know him. So it's like a process of like, who are you? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not even super comfortable introducing my kids to him yet. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know this guy for real.
Let's talk about a couple other tracks on the album. One of the standout tracks to me on the album is Self-Discovery. What can you tell me about that track?
I mean, Self-Discovery is like a lot of what, we just discussed of like, who am I? And what do I like, and where did I come from, and what makes me, both ethnically, culturally. I think we're in a time period right now where race and ethnicity are becoming so defining for people. And honestly, race and ethnicity does not define us as much as culture does. So it's like, what culture do you most identify with? And typically people from the same ethnicity or race can share similar cultural experiences, but that's not always the case. You know what I mean? Like there's some people who don't look like you who share the exact same cultural experiences. And, you know, I think hip hop was a big piece of that. Hip hop is a culture that I just gravitated to. And it was like, man, it was all shapes, colors under the rainbow. And we had shared experiences and a language. So self-discovery was me saying, like, let's put all these pieces together. Let's put the ethnic piece, the cultural piece, the emotional piece. You know, everybody's telling me who I am, but who am I really? You know what I mean? And that's really what the song kind of dove into. Shout out to all my family members who were like cameoed in the song too.
You also kind of bring up the idea that God is relational, not transactional. When you talk about that track, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think we just live in a super transactional like world where all our relationships are like transactional. And I'm also like, I'm a thinker, you know what I mean? Like I think a lot. So when I run into problems, my brain tries to think itself out of the problems, like very transactionally. So, you know what I mean? Like, all right, I'm going through this. What can I take? What can I do immediately to fix this? And I carry that mindset to God, and God is not transactional. He's relational. So he's like, nah, I don't work like that. Like we walk through this together. You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like like in any relationship, it's just that he got superpowers. You know what I mean? It's like, but in any relationship, it's like, hey, mom, I'm struggling. Mom can't fix it if you break your leg. She doesn't snap her fingers and fix it, but she walks with you through that whole process, the cast, the hospital, the healing, the therapy. And that's what God does. He's like, now I'm gonna be right by your side this whole journey. And I needed that.
I think that's important to hear because you know, sometimes I talk to people when they pray and they pray for things just to magically get better. And it's like, it's a process. Like you have to realize that it's like, that doesn't mean that God isn't there or the higher power or whatever people want to call it. Like, it just means that it's not like a snap of the fingers and then some magic person from up above comes below and then fixes everything. It's like, I like that you say it because it is that it's the steps, and it's the steps that you have to feel that, you know, you carry the faith or you carry whatever with you, and then that will eventually lead to whatever it is where you need to go. But this idea that, you know, in the blink of an eye, the situation changes, I think is a narrative that it's kind of been sold to us that does a disservice to the process of getting there.
I totally agree. Like that's like that with anything. Nobody prays for the fat to fall off. You go work out and you thank God for giving you to opening your eyes every day so you can go to the gym. You know what I mean? It's the process.
Speak about Deep End. It's another song and powerful video on this album. What can you tell me, and can you walk me through? I know that was a personal song that you were going through stuff that obviously tied into what's going on in society. Can you tell me about that writing process and what inspired that?
Yeah. Honestly, I went through so much trauma over like from 2016 through 2018 in terms of like, you know, racial injustice and what was going on in society, that by 2020, I just wanted to be chill. Like I was like, let me not trigger myself and go backwards. And so I really wasn't trying to like dive into stuff. So when George Floyd was killed, I was like, nah, I don't want to see it. You know what I'm saying? When Ahmaud Arbery was killed, I was like, nah, I don't want to see it. It's going to trigger me. But then I couldn't avoid it. It was like, I don't know what I was doing, but some kind of way it popped up in front of me and I saw him get killed and it just wrecked me. You know what I mean? It just wrecked me. And I was like, I got to express this. So then I wrote the song and then I sent it to my man Ace, our A&R. And I was like, yo, I'm going to put this on my IG. Just heads up. He's like, yeah, do your thing. And then we put it on IG and so many people responded like, bro, we need this. So we were like, yo, put that on an album. Like, people need this song. And that's how it came to be.
You've talked about race relations for a long time. You had that essay on race relations in the state of America. We talked about that in the previous interview. I know there was some parts of your fan base that had issues with you talking about race. They didn't want you to talk about race. People said race baiting or other things. People who just were uncomfortable with talking about race. Obviously, it's important to talk about race, and and things aren't going to get better unless we address the things that make us uncomfortable.
Right.
Somewhere I read that you disconnected Western Christian things because right now politics are somehow mixed into religion, and it's tied into white nationalism, and all these different things have been kind of like interwoven. How do you go through that process of kind of unpacking all these layers that have kind of been built on top of Western idea of Christianity and what that means to a Black man who's faithful in who has faith in America?
Yeah, a lot of it is just, it takes a lot of deconstruction. You know what I mean? Like, if God is the foundation is fine. You just got to tear down the rest of that building. You know what I mean? And build again on that foundation. So a lot of times, let's just say God is the foundation, and people were building a church. And so you walk into that church and you're thinking like, this is great. But then the walls start caving in, or there's mold, or you're like, yo, what is going on here? So for me, I thought the whole thing was trash. And I was like, I don't want no parts of none of it. You know, that's what led to me like not trusting in God for a season. But then I realized now the foundation is dope. It's what's built on the foundation that's trash that has to go. And so for me, it's just realizing and understanding that everybody has something to contribute. You know what I mean? But when somebody says they own the way that this house should be built, I don't trust them. You know what I mean? And so a lot of America, honestly, it's young. It's like what, 700 years old, something like that. And a little brother complex, and wants to look like we've achieved all this stuff and we've done all this stuff. And so a lot of Americans feel like this is God's country, and we are the chosen country. And oftentimes that's white nationals, because most people of color are connected to some form of immigration, to where it doesn't feel like, well, I don't know about if this is, what I'm saying? Like, I'm connected to people over here, or are you saying these people aren't chosen? My cousins over in Jamaica, they're not chosen? Like, what are you saying here? So I think a lot of it for me was just deconstructing that house and then reconstructing it, where I'm just different, and I'm going to look different, and I'm going to be misunderstood more than I'll be understood. But I think that's the healthiest place to be, is in that misunderstood place. It's like, but how are you a Christian? I am, but you do this, or you did that, or, it's like, well, because I don't fit your mold of what you think that should look like. And so I'm not owned by any of these particular groups. So I'm gonna look different. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm gonna do a song with Ty Dolla $ign because I want to do a song with Ty Dolla $ign, and it doesn't fit whatever mold of Western Christian values that you have. And it's not me being unfaithful; it's me being authentically me.
Couldn't agree more. I feel like with everything that's going on with George Floyd, how do you have, and not just George Floyd is obviously an example of what's going on. It's such a traumatic video to watch. How do you have that conversation with your kids? Do you let them experience the trauma so they could see what's going on, or do you try to have a conversation with just shielding them from the trauma that's going on?
Some of them I let them dive right into it, and then some of them, well, two of them I let them dive right in because they can deal with it. One of them I walk them through it step by step. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, because they're different. Everyone's different. So some people can take that nosedive off the ledge, and some people need like hand holding and walk me through this patiently. And for my oldest two, I let them see the George Floyd video. We had conversations, like, because it's just real. It's real life. You know what I mean? If they would have been on the street that day, they would have saw it. You know what I mean? And I know it's traumatic, but it's our reality too. And if you don't realize how traumatic it is, you're not going to realize how crazy things can be out here. My youngest one is more like, let me give you some baby steps and let me walk you through this and let me explain to you what happened, and kind of gauge from there. So yeah. Last
question. What can you tell us about the book that's coming out? Just a little teaser. I know you got to go, but what can you tell us about the book?
The book is for people who, it's for everybody, but it's my story. I learn from stories. Harvard did a study where they learned that people don't learn from charts and graphs, they learn from stories. So if I want people to understand how you survive chaos and how restoration is possible even in the worst circumstances. They listen to this story. Not saying that I've experienced the worst life ever, but just saying that I have some stories that will help you deal with whatever it is you're dealing with. And you'll be able to say, man, restoration is possible for me. And so political chaos, racial chaos, marital chaos, celebrity chaos, I walk through all of that. And then I show how, you know, I found restoration in that process.
Important times to have that conversation. I feel like the whole country needs restoration right now.
Facts.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you.
Always love, Nick. Appreciate you, bro.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You too.